welcome to UK Media Warrior. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or, as Warner Brothers would like to call it, Fantastic Profits and How to Create Them. It's one of those films that a lot of people weren't sure about when they heard about it. It's written by J.K. Rowling, the creator and the writer of the Harry Potter series of books, and everyone knows how successful those films were. Now, a lot of Potter fans always wanted more books in that universe, be they prequels or sequels. Well, this one is definitely a prequel, 70 years prequel to the Harry Potter book series of books and films. So don't expect to see Harry in this one at all, or even for that matter a mention of him for obvious reasons. There's not even a twinkle in his parents' eyes yet, who aren't even a twinkle in their parents' eyes yet. But anyway, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them follows the adventures of Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne, as he enters New York with a suitcase full of fantastic magical creatures. It's supposed to be just a stopover on his way to yet another destination. It's never really said where he's heading to, but we assume he's coming back to Hogwarts or back to England anyway. Now, Eddie Redmayne is one of those actors, is a bit like Marmite. You either like him or you hate him. He's never really hit it off with me. In this film especially, he plays Newt. He probably actually plays Newt very well. Actually, he does get the character. He plays him very low-key, shy, introvert, fish out of water, which he is, I suppose. But considering this is a character who has supposedly gone around the world saving these creatures, he shouldn't really look or feel this uncomfortable in New York, really. Now, New York itself has a different way of managing things magically than we saw in all the previous Harry Potter films, different than it is in the UK. For example, in England, we call non-magic users muggles. In America, they call them no magic. And also they have their own way of governing magic. They have like a council and a president who deals with being in charge of the magical world, well, we assume in the whole of America, although she's obviously based in New York because that's where the film takes place. So is this a good film? Well, it was certainly very well hyped up and a lot of people were very excited about it. I am a Harry Potter fan. I love the books, I love the films. Oddly enough, I'm in the minority when it comes to films because I preferred the first two, directed by Chris Columbus. A lot of people think that the films really got started around Prisoner of Azkaban. A lot of people say The Prisoner of Azkaban was their best movie out of the lot. Well, that's fine. I mean, obviously everyone has their own opinions, but to me, the essence of Harry Potter books, the childlike wonder and colour and flavour, if you will, of the books, what grabs you about the books was in the first two books, the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone if you're in the UK, and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, those two films, directed by Chris Columbus, as I said, were colourful, beautiful, warm, scary at times when they needed to be, obviously, but they sucked you into the Potterverse. So I think those two films were the best way of introducing people to Harry Potter and set up the rest of the film franchise with a very solid base. Now, whether you say that from the time Chris Columbus left and another directors took over, they were better films, that's absolutely fine. But for me personally, as I say, the first two films are the best, up a nice solid foundation for the rest of the films, which were also very, very good. This film is Fantastic Beasts film is directed by David Yates, who also directed the last four Harry Potter movies. Now, these were the last four that were very serious, very dark, dreary, some would say, painted in shades of black and grey and whites, and it drained of colour really because it became so serious and scary and just tense. Now, these were serious films. A lot was going on in the last four films of the Harry Potter series, I'm sure you probably know. Dealing with a lot of life and death and very serious repercussions for the whole world if Voldemort actually succeeded. So that tone worked well. Now what David Yates has done, he's brought that tone over to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now I don't know whether that was a good move, which is why I'm not sure whether he was the best director for it. Yes, he knows the Harry Potter universe, but I think transferring the dark and dreary look of the last 4 Harry Potter films to a brand new franchise set within the Harry Potter universe might have been a mistake. It comes over as very cold, very stark. It's set within New York City, obviously, so lots of buildings, lots of roads. You don't see a lot of colour at all anywhere. The magic is obviously there, a lot of magic is there, but again, it's not introduced into the film in a way like it was in the Harry Potter movies. It's almost like it's just taken for granted. It's like the people who made this film assume that if you're watching this film, you were a huge fan of the Harry Potter film, so you already know all this, so we don't need to touch on it at all. But the magic, the spell casting, it's used very loose and very sort of, there's no real explanation for it. For example, towards the end where the action ramps up, you've got the Aurors who are trying to obviously protect New York and protect wizards and witches in New York from what's going on, and they're flinging around spells with their wands like they're using real life Tommy guns from the 1920s. They're just flinging them out left, right and centre. You don't know what spells they're casting. All you know is they're supposed to be bad because they're there to hurt people. So that's all you really know. But you don't have the feeling of or depth of the magical spells being cast in this film as you did in Harry Potter. Not to me, at any rate. So that detracts a little bit from the film. There are some good performances in here. So Eddie Redmayne, I've already said, probably encompasses Newt Scamander perfectly, but he's a little bit too low-key in this film to lead it, to be the lead actor in this film. He also mumbles a lot, which is really annoying when you sit in a movie theatre with how loud movie theatres are, and he's centre of the screen and he's got his head down, sort of like flicking his eyes up at you, sort of looking at you from under his eyebrows, and he's mumbling away, and you can't understand what he's saying, even though the volume's turned up to max. So that's rather annoying. The supporting cast around him are very good. In fact, the 4 key characters that make up this small group, Eddie Redmayne being one, are actually the heart of the film, and they do carry it. What's going on around them is obviously very, very important, but these 4, you have Eddie Redmayne, Catherine Watson, Dan Fogler and Alison Sudol, and together the 4 of them make a perfectly small little group. It's sort of similar to Harry, Hermione and Ron in a way, just a lot older. And they carry the heart and the soul of this movie to its conclusion. But that brings me to another problem. The film is called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So you follow Newt in his quest to hunt down the beasts that escaped from his suitcase. That's one story. But then you also have another story. Some magical creature is terrorizing New York. Now, they try to make you think towards the beginning that it's one of the creatures out of Newt's suitcase. But you very, very swiftly figure out, well, that can't be true. So you've got 2 storylines here. You've got Newt in his suitcase and the search for his escaped beasts, and you've got this other storyline, which is run mostly by Colin Farrell, playing Percival Graves. And Colin Farrell is actually very, very good in this film. And I hope he comes back for the rest of them, because his character, Percival Graves, is very intriguing. You want to know more about this guy. So like I say, I hope they bring him back for the rest of the film. But the movie's well, it's not a cliffhanger. The movie's ending is very abrupt, and it does have a twist in it, which admittedly caught me a little bit flat-footed. But then when you see it, you think, oh, right, okay, that will make sense. So it's one of those sort of twist endings, but obviously I won't spoil it. But it's it's a film that has its pacing issues as well. There are a lot of moments between the action scenes, and when the action scenes do turn up, they're normally quite short and sporadic. So you have a lot of talking, a lot of walking, looking around at the amazing world around them. You have a lot of that, which is fine. They're trying to set up this world, but from what I understand, the next film is going to be set in Paris. So you're not coming back to New York. So why did they take all this time setting up these characters in New York if you're never going to see them again? It's just a waste of screen time that they could have spent on more important things. There's also a rumour that Newt won't be in the next film, or possibly even the next 2 films. Now, that would lend itself to the rumour at this point that the next 4 films, because it's supposed to be a 5-film franchise, will be setting up the battle between Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald. Now, if you know the books, you know that Grindelwald was like a precursor to Voldemort. He was like another dark wizard who was incredibly powerful and did really bad, terrible things. So it's basically like the original Voldemort, and then Voldemort came along afterwards and did basically the same sort of thing. That's how it comes across. So Johnny Depp cameos in this film for all of 5 minutes, if that, as Grindelwald. He was cast as that. It was in the advertising as that was who he was going to play. So that isn't really a spoiler. But when you see him, for the 5 minutes he is on screen, he does all right. But it's a lot like people were saying with Jared Leto as the Joker. They didn't like him because he wasn't on there long enough, on screen long enough, for them to really make their mind up whether they like him as that character or not. The same is with Johnny Depp. They've dropped him in there like a drip of story for him, 5 minutes, if that, and he's gone. So you assume that they're going to spend the next 2 or 3 films building it up so you get to see his increasing rise to power and how him and Albus Dumbledore have a huge fight, which went down in Harry Potter history and is referred to in the Harry Potter books and even in the Harry Potter films. So we're assuming that's going to happen sometime in the future in these 5 films. What happens to Newt when he comes back, if he comes back, we don't know yet. So far this film has done really well opening weekend, and it's doing really well at the box office so far from that opening weekend. So it's looking like Warner Brothers have got another winner on their hands, which means the next film is almost definitely already greenlit and probably already in production. So you can bet there's another one coming down the pipe to you very, very soon, which is a good thing. I like this universe. I like the Harry Potter world. I like the way they deal with magic. I like the way they deal with the difference between muggles or no mages and the wizards and the witches in this film. So that's good, and that's what I want to see more of. The interaction between the two, the heart and the soul of these films. I think Harry Potter, more than the action, has always been about the interaction between the characters and how they grow and how you grow to like them and love them as they progress on screen in front of you. So there you go. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It is a good film. I will give this a 7.5 out of 10. It's not as good as some of the Harry Potter films, but it's not a bad start to a new franchise of films. They could have done a few things different. I think the tone could have been a bit different, and I think it would have worked better. But that's just my own personal opinion. Definitely worth seeing if you're a Potterhead. Go and enjoy it. Have a great time. I'll see you guys later for another episode of UK Media Warrior.